Welcome everyone, and welcome everyone who is watching via the internet around the country. Thank you so much for being here. We are delighted to welcome His Excellency Dr. Abdullah back to the Heritage Foundation. I think he said this is his 5th or 6th time, so he probably knows his way around Heritage even better than I do. I'm kind of a rookie, but we've hosted him several times over the years. But we're particularly honored to have him and his distinguished delegation with us here today. I'd like to congratulate Dr. Abdullah and President Ghani for achieving the breakthrough political agreement that led to the establishment of a national unity government last fall. The agreement demonstrates that Afghan leaders, like Dr. Abdullah, are willing to compromise for the sake of peace and stability of their country. That kind of leadership bodes well for Afghanistan's future and inspires hope that the country will find its way forward, despite years of conflict and instability. Shortly after the unity government assumed power, it signed a bilateral security agreement with the U.S. and a status of forces agreement with NATO, thereby allowing the U.S.-led coalition to effectively continue its security partnership with Afghan forces. We at the Heritage Foundation are pleased that the White House has finally agreed to reconsider the timeline for the withdrawal of U.S. forces. And I think this trip will certainly help that process. It now seems likely that the U.S. will leave in place approximately 10,000 troops currently stationed in the country for at least another year. We have long called for the administration to do just this. We are of the firm belief that the administration should determine its withdrawal strategy based on conditions on the ground in Afghanistan rather than on a political timetable here in the United States. It's important that the Afghan people, as well as its leaders, know the U.S. will stand with them in their fight to ensure the country never again turns into a safe haven for global terrorists. As we see the rise of ISIS in Iraq and Syria and the potential for its deadly ideology to spread into other parts of the Middle East and even South Asia, we are reminded of the importance of supporting our allies against global terrorist threats. As they have taken the lead in security operations, Afghan security forces have shown their mettle. They have been able to beat back a determined insurgency and prevent the Taliban from retaking territory throughout Afghanistan. This has been achieved, unfortunately, at a very heavy cost in terms of Afghan security forces, the casualties that they have taken. And our continued support, whether it be training, advising, equipping, or funding the Afghan forces, is essential to make sure that they are capable of dealing with the enemy. But as Dr. Abdullah argued in his recent op-ed jointly with President Ghani, Afghans are not asking the U.S. to do their job for them. The ultimate goal is Afghan self-reliance. Before I turn the floor over to our honored guest, let me tell you a bit about his background. Dr. Abdullah was involved in the national resistance against the invading Soviet forces in the 1980s and also served as foreign minister for the Northern Alliance when it opposed the Taliban rule in the late 1990s. Following the ouster of the Taliban by the U.S.-led coalition in 2001, Dr. Abdullah was selected to serve as foreign minister in the Karzai government, a position he held until 2006. He was a presidential candidate in 2009, but he opted out of the second round of the polls due to concerns of transparency and the credibility of the process. Dr. Abdullah has pledged his commitment to reforming his government and rooting out corruption. With his demonstrated leadership and integrity, I'm confident that he will live up to the pledges. Now, please join me in giving a warm heritage welcome to Dr. Abdullah.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In the name of God, I want to thank the Heritage Foundation, Senator Jim DeMint, Ms. Lisa Curtis, for giving me this opportunity. Exactly, it's either fifth or sixth time that I have been to Heritage Foundation. At times that not a lot of doors were open during the resistance against Taliban, especially. We had a receptive host in Heritage Foundation, so I would want to thank you not only for this opportunity, but for the opportunities that you had provided to us to raise the voice of the people of Afghanistan, give us a podium. Thank you for all. I'll be the first to admit that short of a crystal ball, there is little in politics or about the future of a country that fosters certainty. Here I see friends which have been with us since the time of the resistance against the Soviets. Was it 1987 or that I met Richard McKenzie in one of the most remote villages in northern Afghanistan, in Badakhshan, and he was a journalist at that time. The name of that village was Pinawi, 3 houses, 1 or 2 houses, I think. And he called it the big metropolis of Pinawi. And many friends who have been with Afghanistan, have been supportive of Afghanistan. I see their faces. I want to thank you, thank the American people, the American administration, the American Congress, for its continued support to Afghanistan. Towards the end of 20th century, in our struggle against the Soviet Union, and at the beginning of 21st century, in our struggle against terrorism and Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Post-inauguration and post-formation of the National Unity Government, which was the result of a very interesting rounds of elections, to put it modestly. There was a new chapter in our relations with the United States. A country which has helped us more than any other country in the world and made sacrifices alongside the Afghan people in blood and treasure. Unfortunately, in the last few years of our last administration, the relations between both countries was one of tension, which we didn't need it. We missed some opportunities during those years. Bilateral security agreement was not signed. Status of force agreement with NATO was not signed. Not only those things which were necessary for Afghanistan, first and foremost, those opportunities were missed, but also the messages coming from Kabul was not a good one. The unity government led by President Ghani, which I myself is a chief executive in that unity government, from the first day, we turned things back to normal. Between partners, how relations should be conducted, one of honest partnership and true friendship. Under that spirit, I'm here to thank the American people for its contributions and honor the sacrifices that you have made. And also, as an Afghan and also as chief executive in the Afghan unity government, I want to say that those sacrifices and contributions are not in vain, as a result of which lives for millions of people have changed for better. Education, health, roads, clinics, agriculture, security forces. To give you a sense of our security forces, 2.5 years ago, it was more than 130,000 international forces, including more than 100,000 American forces. Now there are 12,000 international forces positioned in Afghanistan. So the security forces of us were raised with the help of thousands and thousands of your servicemen and women in that remote part of the world. So we're grateful for what you have done, and we are here to make this partnership work in the best interest of both countries. The spirit of partnership is turned into, through a spirit of friendship, the working relations at different levels within Afghanistan and also between our leaders has developed positively. And also within Afghanistan, the hopes that Afghanistan will be able to stand on its own feet in the years to come, go through the path of self-reliance in the upcoming 10 years, with the help in cooperation from our international partners led by the United States. Those hopes were revised. That means there is a great opportunity created there, coupled with lots of challenges that we have to address in the coming years to come. The last 4 days, our visit to Washington, which started with a dinner hosted by Secretary Kerry in his residence, continued with a full-day consultation in Camp David on the issues of security, defense, intelligence cooperation, on the economic and fiscal issues, on the issues of reconciliation, regional economic cooperation, and extensive range of issues and subjects, a full-day consultation with top national security team of the current administration. That was a day to remember, and that is a day that will have its impact for long times to come because of the quality discussions and subjects which were discussed there and decisions which were made. Then a full day in White House, and I would like to thank President Obama for his decision to show flexibility as far as the portfolio of the forces through 2015 is concerned. That was an important decision. The asking for budget support for our forces for 2017, that was another decision. And then economic support, financial support based on incentives, based on conditions for the government of Afghanistan, and revival of the mechanisms which existed earlier. For example, consultations between Pentagon and our Ministry of Defense. There was a mechanism, but it was halted. In the past 3 years, those consultations had not taken place, again, due to the situations back home and the missed opportunities back home, I should call it. Another mechanism between the State Department and our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, creation of an energy task force, and from the other side, commitment of Afghanistan to reform in the areas of governance and fighting corruption, and also assuming responsibility and as far as issues of governance is concerned, and an assurance from our part that the unity government is an enduring phenomena rather than something for a specific period of time, and a sincere and serious commitment on our part to do what is needed from our side and maintain the spirit of partnership as sincere yeah, as possible, in also in raising our, talking about the challenges that we are faced with honesty, in talking about the opportunities that are there with a sense of fortitude. This is what was reflected in the address by President Ghani yesterday, his joint address to the Congress, which was a reflection of the desire of the Afghan nation for the idea of self-reliance, at the same time strengthening the bonds of friendship between both countries. As Chief Executive, I tend to have a little bit more insight to the situation within Afghanistan than other colleagues of us, with the exception of the president, of course. Now, what was decided here in Washington, what was announced here in Washington, you are aware of it. The situation back home, if we focus on the challenges that we are faced with, for example, the upcoming few months, security challenges, fighting season, those challenges are overwhelming. When you look at the opportunities which are there, those opportunities are also endless. It is in this spirit that the unity government is started functioning, not only dealing with the priorities within Afghanistan, but also laying the foundation for better relations in the region, in the neighborhood. Those are efforts made by us, and we will continue to make those efforts with the hope that countries of the region look into the menace of terrorism, in extremism, and radicalism as a joint common threat, and deal with it and address it, and also creating circumstances where countries of the region can benefit from the opportunities which are there. And happy to report that a few days ago, the steering committee for the TAPI, which is Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India gas pipeline project, had made headways. Should we continue with the same pace, it will be 4 to 5 years before we have gas and pipeline moving from Turkmenistan through Afghanistan to Pakistan and India. These are some of the things that has been, some of the undertakings and some of the progress which has been made. The people expect us to deliver sooner than later. The legacy that we have inherited is one which is difficult, but we are determined to take up the challenge and overcome it, and create circumstances, provide for the better future for the people of Afghanistan. When it comes to talking about unity government, President Ghani is the president of the country, and I'm the chief executive. On issues of national interest and high priorities of our nations and our programs, we are on the same page, including about partnership with the United States. We come from different backgrounds. We might present different opinions on certain issues, and at times we are also strong in defending our views. That you consider it as normal. So unity government is functioning, and hopefully with the promise, with the hopes that we will take back after our visit from Washington, things will start moving in a better way within the country. I have to admit that the people, in spite of their hopes, lots of hopes on the unity government and broad support behind the unity government, they were still in a sort of wait and see. how things will happen, what will be the situation as far as the international forces or U.S. forces in Afghanistan is concerned. And our private sector, which has developed a great deal, the civil society, because of the situation in the elections and post-elections, and also the first few months when things didn't seem to be moving as it was expected. Now, with this renewed assurance, we will see things moving in the right direction, and hopefully the position of Afghanistan, location of Afghanistan, which for quite a few centuries it was one of the reasons. There were centuries that this location helped us and helped other countries around us to flourish, and there were times that this became a route for invasion and occupation. Now there is the promise that it will become a place for connectivity, for trade, transit, exchange of ideas, and exchange of energy and goods and materials. This is our vision for the future of our country and our region, and the path ahead of us, with the support of our own people and with the strong bonds of partnership that we have built with the United States and in countries who have helped Afghanistan, and also the efforts that we have made in the region. Hopefully, this will be better than what we have inherited from our earlier generations. That's how I see it. I will never underestimate the challenges that are ahead of us, but at the same time, it's a unique opportunity as well. And for two of us, President Ghani and myself, the opportunity can never be better. Two of us have the majority support throughout the country, which was not the case earlier in Afghanistan. Two of us present a vision for Afghanistan, for a stable, democratic Afghanistan, a country which lives in peace within and without, and respects the human rights and women's rights. These are ideas that our people will support, and hopefully the years to come, we see the materialization of the dreams of the people of Afghanistan. The task ahead of us with our partners, things which we discussed, how to enable the Afghan security forces to be able to deal with the challenges that we are faced with. This is one of the areas of discussions in the past few days, including enablers, including train and assist programs. That will help us to protect the gains of the past 14 years, which is the result of many sacrifices. I mentioned sacrifices of your people as well as our people. On top of what I mentioned, one of the areas that we worked in the past few months has been the reconciliation efforts in moving towards reconciliation. Though so far negotiations has not taken place between Taliban and our government representative, but the ground is being prepared for it. What would that mean? Would that mean that when we start negotiating with Taliban, then the war will end in Afghanistan? The answer is no, unfortunately. But this is the path that our people expect us to follow, and we are committed to follow, and we will do it with the clear parameters. Taliban should give up violence, they should sever their links with terrorist groups, and respect the Constitution of Afghanistan, and the human rights and women's rights are enshrined in our Constitution, and in the achievements of the people of Afghanistan will not be compromised. These are clear parameters that we have set for the start of negotiations, and we hope those countries which have influence over the Taliban, they will use their positive influence in order to help us to achieve these goals. About the timing for Q&A, have I passed that time? Or? Already? Okay. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive Abdullah. That was really a wonderful overview of the situation in the U.S. Afghanistan relationship. Dr. Abdullah has agreed to take questions from the audience. We have about 35 minutes for those questions, so plenty of time. I would just ask that you raise your hand, and once I acknowledge you, if you would wait for a microphone to come to you, and then if you would state your name, your affiliation, and please keep it to a question so we can allow for as many questions as possible. So we have right here, this gentleman.
Warren Coates, until a year ago, a member of the IMF program team in Afghanistan. Dr. Abdullah, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us, and it's wonderful to hear that you and President Ghani are largely on the same page. Two quick questions. Your government is not yet fully in place. When would you expect to have a governor for the Afghanistan Bank, the central bank? And two, in the admittedly very difficult campaign against corruption, the Kabul bank scandal has produced mixed results. 9 innocent members of the central bank convicted. The Attorney General is infamously one of the most corrupt men in the country. Why hasn't he been removed?
The Attorney General, why he was removed? He has been removed already. The Attorney General, yes? Yes, it is quite some time. 3 months now? So for the same reason, perhaps, that you yourself mentioned. And also happy to note that we signed the agreement with IMF. Our Minister of Finance was here recently, very recently. We signed the MOU with IMF on the fiscal and financial reform. So that's also another step forward in this regard. The governor of central bank will be introduced to the parliament. The governor was chosen, but then there were some technical issues which our parliament took it seriously. That's why his confirmation couldn't take place when we introduced earlier our members of the cabinet. Before coming towards Washington, the rest of the members of the cabinet, all of them except for the Minister of Defense, which will be dealt with upon our return, were introduced to the parliament. It is for our parliament to follow the procedure, and we hope that the members of the cabinet as well as the head of our central bank will be approved. Will get approval of the parliament. Hopefully that I will give you the characteristics. He is a well-known banker, well-educated, and with good reputation as far as his integrity and credibility is concerned, and we hope that he will get the approval with the parliament.
Next question, right here, the gentleman in the second row.
Good morning. I would like to congratulate you and President Ghani for a very successful trip. I have a very quick question for you. As you know, we are anticipating to have the constitutional law jirga in Afghanistan in 2016. And for that to happen, the parliamentary elections should happen as well, hopefully this year. And as you know, the election commissions, both they have lost a lot of credibility, and many of the election observers and civil society activists are in the belief that the necessary reforms may not take place for the elections to happen. Although, you know, the formation of the election reform commission right before your trip to Washington was a welcoming step. Do you think the political will with you and your partner there that, you know, that for the necessary reform to happen for the constitutional law jirga to take place eventually in elections?
The reform of the electoral system and the electoral bodies, it's a must. It's a commitment of the unity government, and it will take place. And it's not just a promise that we had made before the inauguration or during the inauguration, but it's rather an absolute necessity for the country, for survival of Afghanistan as a viable state, for the sake of having a functioning government and a representative bodies. The reform is a must. We may not be able, and we will not be able to carry out elections on time because the reforms have not taken place as of yet. That is the flip side of it. But the commitment is there. The commission is being formed. There are a few issues about the formation of the cabinet that when we return back, we will address those issues, and hopefully elections will take place under new circumstances, where it will lead to, from one side, institutionalization of democracy and the rights of the people. From the other side, it will lead to stability in the political system and be considered as a step forward. And beyond, after the elections, district as well as provincial as well as parliamentary elections, it's only the constitutional law jirga is only possible once we have those elections. And elections will take place, but unfortunately not on time. Constitutional law jirga in reform, which was promised to the people of Afghanistan, will be carried out.
Thank you. Mark Weinbaum, right here.
Dr. Abdullah, I'm Marvin Weinbaum at the Middle East Institute. Dr. Abdullah, I'm sure you would agree with me that one of the most notable developments under the unity has been the reaching out to Pakistan. There has apparently, from what we've seen, been some degree of reciprocity here in actions that both countries have taken to improve what has been, of course, over time, at times the worst of relationships, suspicion and so on. How do you see this developing further? But not just with respect to delivering perhaps the Taliban to negotiating with the government, but also perhaps cooperating in addressing the challenge that's presented by the Taliban on both sides of the border.
What do you think, Marvin?
It's your show.
We have made the right effort. I am supportive of this idea of making the right approaches. And a few things have changed in Pakistan as well. There is a new government, relatively new government, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and also the military leadership is new, General Rahil Sharif. At the same time, Pakistan had difficult experience with their own Taliban in the past one or 2 years, including the tragic incident of the school in Peshawar. There is a different environment. The messages that we get are the right messages, and those positive messages have been reciprocated. And our message throughout has been that terrorism is a common threat. It's a common challenge, and we have to address it outright, without any illusion about it. I remember there is a regional economic cooperation mechanism called RECA, which neighboring countries of Afghanistan and countries of the region are part of it. And that was an initiative undertaken by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 2005. And there we have the representatives of our neighboring countries. In my opening remarks, which was a short one, unlike my opening remarks here, I said that the opportunities are vast, endless opportunities, Central Asia and South Asia. And the challenge is one, terrorism. That's the main challenge. And unless we all make an outright decision, a sort of black and white decision, that we are not using terrorism as an instrument for achieving foreign policy objective, we might miss another opportunity, another historic opportunity. Those lessons are before us at this stage. And here is we lay our hopes upon. Progress, positive developments has taken place in relations between both countries. But the road ahead is a long road ahead of us. Still, we will have to make even further efforts. It's not just bringing Taliban to the negotiating table. There is the issue of sanctuaries. These are on the security side of it, on the negative aspects of things which are hurting us, and at the same time the opportunities. I mentioned just one example, which is this gas pipeline. There is the electricity transmission line from Central Asia, from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, through Afghanistan to Pakistan. There are joint electricity projects, Kona River, which could have been a source of dispute, but we can turn it into a win-win situation by having a joint project which will address the energy needs in Pakistan as well as ours, and we all can benefit from it. So there are lots of scopes of cooperation, trade and transit in all of it. But to materialize these things and to translate these things into circumstances where it helps security in Afghanistan and security in the region, we are yet to see it happening.
David Sedney.
David Sedney, formerly with the U.S. State Department and U.S. Defense Department. First of all, I want to congratulate you, Dr. Abdullah, and your partner, President Ghani, on, I think, a highly successful visit to the United States. You needed to rebuild credibility, rebuild trust, restart the relationship, and I think you've succeeded exceptionally well. And I wish you, both congratulate you and wish you well. My question, however, goes from the large to the local. Over the years, particularly in recent years, I've had the opportunity to hear from and even hear directly from people who have supported the Taliban. And whether it's in Zabul and Kandahar or Badakhshan and Konar, those who support the Taliban point to failures at the very local level, local governorship, abuses, seizure of land, forced marriages of daughters, physical torture by local authorities as the main reason they support the Taliban. I would be very interested in your views and what you and Dr. Abdullah plan to do to try and address these concerns on the very local level in Afghanistan.
You mean Dr. Ghani?
Me
and Dr. Ghani.
You and Dr. Ghani. What did I say?
Dr. Abdullah.
Dr. Abdullah.
Sorry, Dr. Abdullah twice.
I did that. A lot of people get the names wrong.
Yes. Thank you, David. And you were part of the developments in Afghanistan, and at different times and circumstances you have served our country, and also when you were based here in Washington, you have always maintained an interest and support, and thank you for that. And this is one of the factors, the local circumstances, but which we have to address it anyway. This is our responsibility. Issues of governance, rule of law, corruption, whether it is in the areas which Taliban has some influence or in other parts of the country. But this couldn't be like translated into the main factor for creation of Taliban. I'm sure you didn't mean it that way. So we have to address these issues as part of our duties and responsibilities and commitments towards our people. And that also, that's not also limited to the areas where in the vicinity of Taliban or under the influence of Taliban. That's throughout the country, from Kabul to the furthest parts of the country. Governance, we had setbacks in the past few years. It started well, with lots of expectations from the people and lots of time that the people gave us in order to improve the situation. But our government was not able to fulfill the promises that it had made to the people. That has led to the dissatisfaction. And then in between, criminal groups as well as terrorist groups and groups like Taliban have taken advantage of that. It is part of the reform agenda. It takes political will, which is there. It takes leadership, program, processes in place, regulatory reform and reform otherwise. But this is a very critical issue. And in parts of the country, disputes, the events which has taken place, you don't find any justification for it. And that has led to big resentment amongst the population. Unfortunately, that has not pushed the population towards the Taliban because the people had experienced the rule of Taliban. I remember during Taliban rule, which I was representing the resistance against the Taliban at that time, coming to Heritage Foundation. A colleague of mine, which passed away a few weeks ago, a good friend of us, Harun Amin, which was our representative at that time in our charge d'affaires at the beginning after 9/11. I just returned from New York from the UN General Assembly, and then next morning I had a breakfast meeting, roundtable in Heritage Foundation. And he had a bag with him, paper bag, and inside that paper bag there was teddy bear. And I didn't know that the night before Taliban had banned paper bag as well as teddy bear. Since the people of Afghanistan has gone through that experience, but nevertheless, Taliban have been able to capitalize on those things. But as a phenomena, Taliban in itself, they want to replace the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, which is our constitution is based upon, into Islamic Emirate, which is their rule. We shouldn't leave any excuse for any group that want to capitalize on our shortcomings, and so we have to deal with it and address it thoroughly.
Okay, T. Kumar.
Thank you very much. Kumar from Amnesty International. Congratulations for your new chief executive post. My question is about your meetings you had at Camp David as well as Secretary's dinner. You gave a kind of a list of what you discussed, terrorism, security, all the good things. But you did not mention about women's rights. As you are aware,
I did at the beginning, I think.
not about the discussions you had.
No, I mentioned about human rights and women's
That's
rights.
in the end that Afghan people want. That's
Sure.
different. I am talking about whether at Camp David, whether it was discussed, even though it may have been discussed, you didn't mention. That shows that it's not on the top priority.
No,
That's-
it doesn't show. Mr. Kumar, it is a top priority not because you are asking for it. It's a top priority because we also have hopes for our people, and we know and we understand without addressing the issues of human rights and women's rights, and without addressing the fate of more than half of our population, we cannot progress. We even cannot survive.
Nice to
It
hear.
was discussed. I mentioned the titles like security, governance, rule of law, which it comes under these titles. But it does not mean it does not suggest by any means that it is not our priority, or it was not. In the Congress, it was raised by the senators and congressmen. In the White House, it was raised by President Obama himself. In Camp David, it was raised during our consultations.
Well, that's very
for
nice
your
to-
assurance. Okay.
That's very nice to hear. I have a quick
yes,
follow-up. No, I
Okay.
just want to.
Okay.
You have, if you can prove that you are very serious about women's rights, there are 3 vice presidents in Afghanistan. Can't you make one of them a woman? Thank you.
One of the vice presidents.
One of the vice presidents. There are 3 vice presidents.
So with all due respect, there are 2 vice presidents. Okay. Had it been 3, the third one will be a woman. The women are aspiring in Afghanistan to become presidents, and the evolution in terms of women's rights is very significant. But at the same time, I have to admit that the challenges that we are faced with are also huge. And now we have four women nominated in the cabinet, which these are capable women. Those all 4 of them are the ones who had spent their times within Afghanistan, most of the time under difficult circumstances, and that also gives me make me more proud. 2 of them are doctors, and good doctors. Yes, heads of hospitals, and these are the steps which we have undertaken, and this we will never lose sight of this for our own sake, and this is our commitment, and of course there will be resistance towards these evolutions, in positive evolutions. The achievements of the past 14 years, it has not come automatically. It has been as a result of lots of efforts, lots of political capital invested here, but I can assure you that this will be a top priority, and it has been a top priority throughout our discussions here in Camp David, in White House, as well as when we met with the leadership of Senate and Congress and majority leaders. In all discussions, I don't recall one single discussion which this issue had not been raised either from our side or from our partners in the United States. Okay?
Thank you. The gentleman in the white in the second row.
Thank you so much for coming to speak to us, and thank you for your gracious and sincere remarks about the state of American-Afghan relations. My name is Grant Denny. I'm a student at American University. I was wondering if you can talk about any initiatives by the new unity government to build confidence in foreign investors to invest in Afghanistan. on issues such as security, corruption, and infrastructure?
That period of uncertainty in the past 1 or 2 years, I'm taking this 6 months as an exception, but before that, where the political transition was about to take place, the security transition was about to take place. And there were lots of analysis that Afghanistan will not survive 2014. You might recall, or those who have followed those years, they might recall that there were all those analysis around it. And that kept the investors away. Now with the renewed opportunities, I'm not saying that everybody is rushing towards Afghanistan, but they are watching. We have to take steps, regulatory in providing the right regulatory framework, and also bold the steps in dealing with corruption. Then there are certain other issues which have to be addressed. The infrastructure, energy. I mentioned the examples of it. And unless these things comes, it will be sometimes before investors will rush towards Afghanistan, but already they have shown interest in areas of our natural resources, in energy as a whole, rare earth materials, which Afghanistan is very rich, and gas and oil. Interest has been shown. That period of uncertainty has affected those intentions adversely, but nevertheless, with the progress, with the assurance that will be coupled with the decisions which were made on the security field, all of these will affect the attitude of the investors towards coming towards Afghanistan.
Okay, and I want to take gentleman over here in the brown.
Thank you very much, Janabi Dr. Saif, for this excellent presentation and your insight about local and global issues. My question is about the Afghan judiciary. Since 2010, first of all, I'm Saeed Rahi, working with Chemonix International. Since 2010, the Afghan judiciary is governed by acting justices and also few justices, by acting chief justices and also few justices. When the Afghan judiciary will have full operating and constitutional justices and chief justice. In addition to that, during the campaign, it was mentioned that there will be one woman to appointed as Justice of the Supreme Court. Is this something that the unity government still is planning to appoint a woman as a Justice of the Supreme Court? Thank you.
Okay. On the situation before the unity government, it was a very unique situation. Not only Afghanistan, the Supreme Court was ruled by an acting Chief Justice, but it was an acting Chief Justice, with all due respect to him personally. It was an acting Chief Justice which his term was over, a constitutional term. And I was amongst the only politicians, or perhaps the only person, which had raised this issue constantly and protested against this. Unfortunately, that decision was delayed and delayed. So it wasn't just the acting Chief Justice. He was not supposed to be a justice in the Supreme Court because it's tenure. Our Constitution is very clear, one term for the justices of the Supreme Court. So that situation is behind us now. Now the acting Chief Justice today is a current justice himself, but decisions in this field also will be taken soon. On the commitment about one woman in the Supreme Court, in principle, that commitment is there. The programs on capacity building in this field has started, and it will not be long before we have that idea materialized. That leading? Yeah, second row.
Hi, I'm Martina from American University. I read in a Norwegian newspaper yesterday that 3 representatives from the Afghan Taliban attended a peace conference in Oslo 2 weeks ago, along with representatives from the Afghan government. Is this something that you can confirm? And if so, is initiatives like this, are they premature, or do you think that they could lead to something positive?
The question was that Afghan government representatives had met with the Taliban in Oslo.
Yeah, while attending the same peace conference, which was in Oslo from an initiative with the Norwegian government.
If somebody is being invited on its personal capacity to a conference, I cannot. First of all, I haven't heard about this. And in case somebody in his personal capacity had been invited to some conference, I don't know that, but there hasn't been any official representation from the Afghan government to any conference.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a retired diplomat, Harswarup Singh. It's very gratifying to see that our relations, India's and Afghanistan's relations, are doing very well. And this is in the epics, it's mentioned, these are historic relations. There have been some pressures from a country in the region who will remain nameless to hold back. From my understanding, from the Indian foreign policy point of view, India is willing to do more. I understand. I'm not part of any policy making now. How serious is this matter that in the regional context it is important? It's important for U.S. Afghanistan relations that the region be peaceful. What is the situation at this time, and would we see a more deep and better relations between our two countries, which have been historic friends?
Okay. First of all, our rapprochement towards other countries, our relations with our neighbors near and abroad in our countries of the region. Everyone is being conducted in the context of our bilateral relations. And no country will be allowed or has been allowed to decide for us to have relations with which country, better relations or not better relations with which countries. The conduct of our foreign policy based on our national interest and independent foreign policy. That is what we have done. For example, if you consider the context of our relations with different countries, then you will see that countries which have good relations and friendly relations with Afghanistan, in the context of their own bilateral relations, there have been diversity in this regard. That examples are very clear in this regard. So the independent foreign policy is something that we will not compromise as a whole, as a matter of principle. When it comes to India, India has helped Afghanistan in the past 14 years and will continue to be a partner and continue to be a strategic partner with Afghanistan. And we have signed a partnership agreement with India, which is a comprehensive one. In the scope of relations between both countries are very broad and can only grow further. So there isn't such a concern that one country will hold back or will be allowed to hold back our relations with other countries. So that proposition is out of question, and you have helped us. India has been the 5th donor countries to Afghanistan, and over $2 billion of assistances to Afghanistan in the past 14 years in many spheres of life, and those helps are appreciated, and relations can only grow for better. Okay?
The gentleman in the back, right here.
My name is Yusuf Safi. Just have a question for Dr. Abdullah. The question is that Taliban and other extreme groups been the bad guys in Afghanistan the last 20 years. What makes them to be good now that they are trying to integrate to Afghan society, and what benefit Afghanistan will get from them regarding the peace process, progress, and also the democracy? So that's a question I got, and I'm concerned their participation in today's Afghanistan and joining the government might not benefit the Afghan government and also the region.
The past 18 years or 20 years since the emergence of 20 years since the emergence of Taliban, the fighting has been going on, and throughout this period, there have been efforts to stop fighting in line with the idea of stopping fighting and trying to find a peaceful solution. Even during the resistance against the Taliban, which we were resisting against the Taliban, and I was representing the Afghan government at that time, and 1 or 2, 3 countries recognized Taliban as the official government, their representatives, and the rest of the countries, including United Nations, we were representing the government there. Even during those difficult days of resistance, there were talks, and this is provided that the parameters are very clear for the people of Afghanistan, provided that the assurance is given to the people of Afghanistan that their rights and achievements will not be compromised. It is necessary to keep the door open and to make effort in order to get them to the negotiating table. That is the demand of the absolute majority of the people of Afghanistan. Where it will lead, where it will take us from that point, them coming to the negotiating table does not necessarily suggest immediately them coming back to rule Afghanistan or part of Afghanistan or have or be in the government. That's the start of a process which is necessary. There might be groups which they opt to continue fighting up to the end. There isn't much that we can do. There might be groups that they want to come and be part of the political process rather than pursuit of violence against its own people. So this is the idea, then of course fighting war is not something that a nation will opt for. Or people are suffering because of the war. Yesterday there were casualties in the center of Kabul. The day before yesterday in other parts of the country, and so on daily basis our people suffer because of the war. These efforts are the right efforts, and what it will lead to, it will be a startup of a process once it starts. So to have a picture of final outcome at this stage, I don't think that that's possible at this stage.
Great. We're going to take one more question, and this gentleman over here.
Arif Ansar from Polytech. Dr. Abdullah, I wanted to ask you your views about Daesh, IS. There is a lot of hype about it, or maybe it's real. We are seeing that a lot is happening in Middle East, and it's spreading, and the latest news, obviously, is Yemen. How serious is the threat in that part of the world, in Afghanistan, and how is it connected to the reconciliation? Would it harm or benefit? How do you see this? Thanks.
Daesh as a whole it's not an imminent threat in Afghanistan at this stage, but it is something that nobody can ignore it in the region and beyond the region. Now it has turned into itself very quickly into a very serious threat in global level. They are after territory in Khilafat, and that idea doesn't have resonance in many parts of the, especially among the governments in our region. And they will turn against every government because of their idea of revival of Khilafat. In this concept, while the threat and the challenges there for everybody to deal with it, there might be a scope for cooperation between different countries of the region, how to deal with it, and of course seek support from countries beyond the region. So as far as Afghanistan is, and also that puts them in conflict with the local groups which have been operating, for example, like under the umbrella of Al-Qaeda or other terrorist organizations or radical groups. There might be an opportunity in this. In Afghanistan, yes. Why we cannot ignore it? Because already some signs here and there, so we shouldn't let it grow and develop. And also they can utilize the insecure environment in parts of the country. So we cannot ignore it, but it's not a direct imminent threat today in Afghanistan. We shouldn't let the potential to grow. We should keep an eye on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I came all the way from Los Angeles, California. There's a possibility, two quick questions from Mr. Abdullah.
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine, yeah.
My name is Joey Paimonia from Zarin TV. Mr. Abdullah, on behalf of Afghan people from California, especially from Los Angeles, I will welcome you to the United States of America. Also, I want to thank you for your service. On this, beside Ahmad Shah Massoud, the leader of the national hero of Afghanistan, that you fought against the Soviet Union and also the Taliban. Personally, I wanted to thank you because you guys are the heroes. You guys free Afghanistan. You guys are in Afghan's heart and soul. Personally, I want to thank you. My question is about the killing of Farkhunda. What decision would you make? And that's the first question. The second question is, lately the top officials, Pakistani figures, they're visiting Kabul often. How could you trust these figures or these persons that they are the worst enemy of Afghanistan and Afghans? Thank you so much.
On the sad, tragic incident, on the heinous crime which took place against Farkhunda in daylight in Kabul, the government of Afghanistan took it very seriously. 22 people are under arrest. 10 police personnel and officials are under investigation, and the culprits have been arrested. And it has been taken very seriously. The investigation is underway, and those who have committed this heinous crime will be punished severely. Of course, in accordance to the law. This tragedy is shocked our nation, and people watched it on their TVs with great sense of disbelief that this could happen. So it has been taken very seriously. In regards to visitors to Kabul or our visits, we don't treat people with a sense of trust or mistrust. We raise with all those representatives of different countries which come to us our issues, our concerns, our interests, our common interest, and seek cooperation and promise goodwill in exchange, in cooperation in exchange. And this is then the time will prove how it works. whether goodwill from another side is reciprocated by us or our goodwill is reciprocated by the others, the time will prove it. So we cannot judge it at this stage. But in our conduct, we don't have a sort of preperceived judgment, trust or mistrust. Yes, there are situations that we have developed strong partnership ties. There, it's different, that environment. The rest of it, it is the interest, in common interest that we discuss, the concerns, the challenges, the opportunities, and the scope of cooperation. So we are not like sort of over-optimistic about our efforts. And we are also not pessimistic. We will remain realistic and continue to make efforts in that regard. Okay, good.
We want to thank Dr. Abdullah for coming to the Heritage Foundation and spending so much time with us with his very candid and genuine remarks. Having known Dr. Abdullah for several years, he has been one of the leaders in committing to fighting for the rights of women in Afghanistan. And as we know, the issue of women is directly related to that of security. One of the ways the Taliban tries to consolidate its power is by repressing women. So I am very confident that Dr. Abdullah, in leading his nation, will continue this fight for women in Afghanistan. And I'm sure after today's remarks, you all share with me confidence in the future of Afghanistan with somebody like Dr. Abdullah there in a leading position. So I'm bringing the session to a close. I would like to ask the audience to stay seated until Dr. Abdullah leaves the stage. But will you please join me in another round of applause for Dr. Abdullah?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Yeah. Stay seated before I thank you once again. Okay. Thank you.